Black man, get back your mind. Get back your minds. Reclaim your minds as black people. As black people. You see, the whole educational system got us thinking like robots. We think the way the enemy wants us to think. We think the way the oppressor wants us to think. And if you think the way your oppressor wants you to think, then your oppressor does not have to worry about your actions because he controls your mind. A person who controls your mind controls your actions, can predict your actions. See? So you can never really be revolutionary if you don't have your mind. You can never fight for yourself as a black person until you claim back your mind. Get back your mind. You see, the educational system, when I'm talking about, I have learned about history in primary school and high school. Corporational education taught me their own version of history. You see, in history, when they taught me about black consciousness, they did not really teach me about black consciousness. You see, they just taught me about Stepan Biko, said black people should love themselves, the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. He died on this day because of this and this and this and this. Full stop. That's all they wanted me to know. And even if they did want me to research, I grew up in a poor family, a poor environment, a poor educational system where I cannot access information. The only source of information I have as an African child in school is a textbook, the one that they choose for me. And they decide which topics are being taught in my class. They never taught me about Marcus Garvey. They never really taught me about Malcolm X. And whenever they did, they vilified him. They never taught me about the Black Panther movement. And when they did, they vilified it. They never taught me about Robert Sobukwe. The rich African history that I wanted to know, the revolutionary history that I needed to know, I could not get it from school. Why? As an 18-year-old child, I deserve such kind of information, especially if I am black. Do I have to access the information when I get to varsity? Do I have to access the information when I grow up? No, it's wrong. It is very wrong. It is very wrong because if I do not get information about who I am as an African, then my mind will always be controlled by the person I'm trying to fight against. If my enemy controls my mind, then my enemy can turn me into his friend. Think about it. Huh? The only person that they got deep into through this school, my learning history, my learning evolution, the only two figures, historical figures that they taught me about, black and black, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, or even Muhammad Gandhi, a racist motherfucker. They only taught me about those people. To promote an ideology, whenever somebody gives you a set of facts or fake facts, he promotes an agenda. What was the agenda behind the Nelson Mandela that was given to me when I was young? What was the agenda of Martin Luther King that was given to me when I was young? What is the agenda of Mahatma Gandhi that was given to me when I was young? Globalism, a non-racial mentality. You cannot tell me that as a victim that I should have a victimless mentality. I'm a victim already. I must see myself as a victim and decide how I react towards my victimization. See, If I am a victim of bullying, if I am a bullied child, I have to see myself as a bullied child and decide what I do about that bully, how I react towards my bully. If I am an oppressed person as a black person, if I am oppressed, I must see myself as oppressed so that I can decide what I do about my oppression, how I react towards my oppressor. But if they teach me to not think as a black person, if they teach me to be non-racial, then becoming non-racial, I forget to realize the reality that I am still oppressed. And then I will never get to solve my problem as a black person. Know your history. Know your history and reclaim your mind. The one who controls your mind controls your action. You wonder why you are poor? Your mind. You wonder why you have HIV and AIDS? Your fucking mind. You wonder why white people still own the majority of the property in the country? Your mind. You wonder why black people in America are being brutalized by the police? Your mind. You wonder why African kids are starving and dying? Your mind. You wonder why your people die from Ebola? Your mind. You wonder why your people are killing each other? Your mind. Your mind. You wonder why you couldn't afford education, a good education? Your mind. If you wonder why your people are suffering, your mind is to blame. Or at least the absence of your mind is to blame. You are sleeping. If you wake up, only if you wake up you can realize your problem. You can never solve a problem while you are sleeping on it. Black man, you have to see yourself as a black man. Oppressed man, you have to see yourself as an oppressed man. A victim of bullying must see himself as a victim of bullying. Then he can decide what he does about the bullying, about the victimization. He can decide now how he reacts towards the bully. You can never solve your problem unless you are aware of your problem. Black people will never solve their real problem unless they become aware of their real problems. Our real problem is oppression. And we can never realize this problem and even get to solve it until we claim back our minds. I don't want you to just know that you are oppressed. I want you to understand the nature of your oppression. I want you to understand the nature, the characteristics and the implication of your oppression. Why are you oppressed? How are you oppressed? Then you can know how you can free yourself. You must be able to realize the media is projecting a bad picture of Africa. You are not in control of your own narration, and that is just bad. It's bad for you. Because the one who controls your narration controls your minds, and him controlling your minds controls your action. You're going to continue suffering in poverty and hunger, disease and war, oppression, economical exploitation, social degradation. You're going to continue suffering as an African until you get back your mind. The African mind is very crucial. The African mind is crucial to the African. Every living organism depends on its body organs. Your mind is part of those body organs. Every human being depends on his own brain. Every man depends on his own brain. A man without a brain cannot survive. A foolish man will always be controlled by the smart man. The man who uses his mind will control the one who doesn't use his mind. Think. Think as an African. Think as an oppressed person. Never get rich and forget the fact that you are oppressed. You see, the fact that you drive a Mercedes-Benz doesn't mean you are no longer oppressed. The fact that you are wearing Gucci doesn't mean that you are no longer oppressed. The fact that you have dinner with white people doesn't mean that you are no longer oppressed. The fact that you live in a suburb, in a city, you live in a good house, a luxurious house, does not change the fact that you are still oppressed. As long as you have the melanin, you are an oppressed person. And you have to realize that, because even if you are rich, your children are going to suffer from oppression. You can leave them with all the money that you have, but they are still oppressed. They will not be able to enjoy certain privileges on this earth until you give them what is theirs, their minds. Teach your children in history, because they will never learn history in school. The schools will never teach the African child his own real history. Learners in schools will never know about Marcus Garvey. Never. They only teaches us about Mao Zedong. Why do we have to know about Chinese? Why do we have to know about the history of the Chinese? Why do we have to know about the history of the Europeans? And check this out. It is them who tells us their history. But they also tell us our history. You see, the Chinese explains his own history. The European explains his own history. Even the Indian attempts to explain his own history. We don't own our history. We don't tell our own stories. The information is out there. The information is just out there. Some of us have it in our brains, and it is our responsibility to share it. I am willing to spend the rest of my life sharing with people what I know. The skills, the information, and the capabilities that I have, I'm willing to share them with black people. Give me the audience, I will show you. I'm willing to share everything I have with black people, because I know that we are one. You see, only those who know that we are one are the ones who are already in Africa. I'm not in South Africa. Don't call me a South African. Don't even call me an Azanian. I'm an African. My soul is already in Africa. Even if I'm still alive, I'm already in the spiritual land. I know that we are one person as Africans. And the suffering of my brother is my suffering. Because when I look at him, I see the image of myself. When you look into the eyes of your sister, you see the image of God, the image of you. The image of you. We have to develop black consciousness. We have to develop love for one another. And we can never do that. We can never develop love for one another until we claim back our minds as Africans, our minds, these brains. We have to claim them back. How do we do that? You see, you yourself is conscious. You yourself, you think that you know the truth. Teach the truth to your children. And if you don't know the truth, search for the truth. Search for who you are, African child. Know who you are. Know that you are oppressed, and know how you got from a point of being a god. You got from a point of being a king, a pharaoh, and got to be a slave. Know that. You must realize that you are a prisoner of war. You need to wake up out of those cages. You are a prisoner of war. You have to escape those cages and get back to the battleground. The war doesn't end until the enemy is defeated. Not until we are defeated. We are never defeated. We are God's people. A child of God is never defeated. Because God cannot die, so we cannot die, because we are the children of God. They have tried to exterminate us, but they have failed because they can never destroy God. So the war does not end until the enemy is defeated. Besides the enemy being defeated, we are suffering as Africans. We know that. We know that. We just have to redirect our anger to the right person, our frustrations to the rightful person, our enemy. Come on, guys. You call yourselves Africans. Africans. But the enemy is in possession of the majority of the African land. In this piece of land that they have came to call South Africa, there are more black people than white people. But white people own the majority of the land, and black people own a very little tiny clump, and they are fighting over that clump. We are fighting over the clumps, and the enemy owns the majority of the land. Do we need to fight for a clump when there's a large number of land? Do we need to fight for this one apple while we have the whole apple tree? Are we cowards? Do we fear to go and get our own apples there? There's a whole bread over there, we are fighting over crumbs. There's a whole cake over there, we are fighting over crumbs. You know why? Because we are not in possession of our minds. You see, the first thing we have to fight for is not our land. The first thing we have to fight for is our minds. Our minds. The land is crucial, but you can get the land but not have your mind, and you are still defeated. You're still defeated. Look at them, hankies. They got into parliament. The enemy took a group of black people and threw them into parliaments, convinced them that they are leaders. Guess what? The enemy is inside their minds. You see, the whole ANC gang, boom, into parliament. Do you think the enemy would make a mistake of reforming his oppression? Because he knows once he reforms his oppression, something is coming for them. You see, we got political power, but we don't have power over our mind. You see, you are a black president, Nelson Mandela. You have been a black president without a black mind. You should have owned your mind. If you owned your mind, you would have been able to give your people their land. You chose to be a leader. You chose to be a leader. A leader gets to have responsibilities. You decided to have the responsibility to be trusted with the revolution. You see, the one who leads acquires the responsibilities to say, no, my people, go there and take back your land. Go and take it. Go and repossess it. If need be, we legislate such kind of land repossession. Let it be. Just like Robert Mugabe did. Just like he did. He did not fail his people as much as giving them what is theirs. The only mistake that he might have made was to not know the need to conscientize those people. You see, a lot of us make the biggest mistake. A lot of these leaders make the biggest mistakes. You see, they gather a number of slave queens, a number of gangsters, group them together and say, let's go get our land back. Yes, they will get the land back. You see, they will get it, but after getting it, there will be conflicts. There will be chaos, there will be no order. And one of those gangsters is going to sell the land back to the enemy. One of those slave queens is going to sit on that land and do nothing. Conscientize the minds of the people. If you are a leader, conscientize them. You South Africa, you ANC, more than 20 years in power or in so-called power. There's something you should have done. The first thing you should have done as a governing organization is to implement black consciousness. To provide the people with decolonization education. That should have been the first of all priorities. The first of all priorities. The time you gave us education, in that education, there should have been decolonization. Because an education for a black child without decolonization is just something that is meant to support white domination. All of us in universities getting degrees, law degrees, science degrees, only to work for the white man, to continue supporting the white domination structure. Okay, mistakes have been made, but what's happening now? Nelson Mandela made a mistake. All of those leaders before us made mistakes. What are we doing now? The ANC in parliament, what is it doing? But I'm not having any grief towards the ANC because I don't trust it. I was never born trusting the ANC, and I will die not trusting any political party to liberate black people. There is no single political party that is going to liberate us. None. The people are going to liberate themselves. We have to do away with the mentality of sitting down around and waiting for a black saint, waiting for a leader to come and save us and give us all the honeys we've been crying for. No. We have to conscientize every single black person and convince him that he is a leader. Check this out. How many revolutionaries do you know? If you are really conscious, there are many of them, many revolutionaries. They were all working on one purpose. They did not allow one leader, one political organization to represent them. That's rubbish, complete rubbish. There's a leader in every one of us. There is God in every one of us. God is a leader. We were made in the image of God, whom is a leader. Then we are logically all leaders. There is no such thing as an alpha male. There is no such thing as a beta male. We are all leaders. If God is powerful, we also are powerful if we are made in His own image. We have to conscientize every single African learner in the class, every single black person, to convince them that they are leaders and they all hold the responsibility to fight for Africa, to fight for themselves, to fight for themselves. You see, the way Jehovah's Witnesses conduct themselves, you see, how they go door to door to tell us the stories of Jesus, how we are Jehovah's Witnesses, we know Jehovah and all of that caboodle. I get inspiration from it, how they can organize themselves, see, without one single leader being in front of them. They just separate themselves into numbers and go and conscientize people. That is what we should be doing. Those in parliament talk about the fear of an unled revolution. An unled revolution. That is the kind of revolution we want. Because first of all, there is no such thing as an unled revolution. What you hankies want us to do is to kneel down on our knees and wait for a political party to give us our land, to give us our minds, to give us what is ours. We are not going to sit down. There is no black person in South Africa that is going to sit down and wait for a political party to come and save them. We are conscious now. We know who we are now, and we know who you are. We are not going to let you have us on our knees, waiting for you to give us our land, wait for you to give us our resources. We are all going to unite and fight for what is ours. An unled revolution is the revolution that we want, because contrary, there is no such thing as an unled revolution, because there is a leader in all of us. Once you decide to revolt, you are already a leader. There's no such thing as an unled revolution. The word revolution has leadership in it. When a person decides to say, no, I cannot continue like this, that's leadership. That's leadership. Every one of us knows the problems of Africa. Everyone knows the suffering we're going through. Everyone knows who is our oppressor. then we are all leaders equally and we can fight for what is ours. I'm not saying there shouldn't be one person speaking up and guiding the people. There should be, perhaps, but I don't think that we have to kneel down on our knees and wait for a political party that has no skin color to tell us what to do and what not to do. We must accept only to be led by people, not political organizations, especially those who go to parliament, who want us to sit down on our asses and vote for them. As if we are living in a democratic nation. There is no such thing as democracy for black people. Black people have no democracy. There's no democracy. For us, no. Since we do not control our minds, then we don't have democracy. I think one of the rights that should have been included in the Constitution should have been the right to own our minds. The right to own our minds. See right there? Yeah, because our minds are the most important resources for our survival. The mind of an individual person is the most important resource for his survival. Without your mind, you are living under one man's mercy. I do not want black people to continue living under the mercy of the government, living under the mercy of pastors, living under the mercy of kings, living under the mercy of white people, living under the mercy of China, living under the mercy of USA. We must begin to see ourselves as the gods that we are. We were made in the image of God. Then we are, and we all can unite and fight for what is ours. But first, we have to reclaim our minds. How are we going to conscientize black people? How are we going to make them to love themselves? First, we have to organize ourselves. A few of us, those who can see what is going on, leave the PAC, come and join the Rothschild Foundation. Leave any political organization that is wasting your time and come, unite with us and engage in action, a productive action, a revolutionary action. I think one man going to school to teach black people about black consciousness is more important than 1,000 men promoting a political party. Can I say that again? One man going to a school to educate children about the real black consciousness is much more effective and important than 1,000 men supporting a political party. Those people who are promoting a political party, I call them useful idiots. Useful idiots. What they're doing is promote a political party, not a political ideology. We don't have to be sending people to parliament. We have sent the ANC, we have sent the EFF, and much more political parties, even the DA. We have sent them to parliament. What do we have? Nothing. The problem of Africa is very simple as it is. We are oppressed, we fight for our oppression. We fight for our minds, we fight for our resources. It's all about power, it's all about resources. We don't own our resources in Africa. The enemy owns them. Somebody made a joke about how we import toothbrushes from exterior countries. How embarrassing is that? As if we don't have our minds, and we don't. We don't have minds in Africa. Our minds are in Europe. Our minds are in the hands of Bill Gates. Our minds are in the hands of the Ruperts, the Oppenheimers. Our minds are in the hands of the Rothschild. Our minds are in the hands of America, in the hands of China. You see, if they say that they give me my mind back and then they take my life, I will appreciate that. Give me my mind. Of course you won't. Black people have to claim back their minds. Their minds. You know, when children are young, they are innocent, they know nothing. They are relying on us to tell them that why they are poor. A child will grow up and say, Dad, why are we poor? Why are we suffering? Tell them, colonizers took the land, took the resources, and he owns the minds of your uncles and grannies. You, son, I don't want you to continue being owned mentally, psychologically. You must grow up knowing that your skin is beautiful no matter what the media tells you. You must grow up knowing that you are powerful no matter what the corporational education tells you. We have to educate our people. We have to volunteer in educating our people about black consciousness. The way we volunteer in educating people about Jesus. Is Jesus more important than black consciousness? I don't want to answer that. We have to volunteer in educating our people. Because without educating our people, there's no revolution that is going to come out.